4 days before Dolly Parton passed, she said something that hit completely different. It hits differently now. At 80 years old, after more than 7 decades of work, more than 100 million records sold, movies, business, Dollywood awards, millions of books given to children, Dolly Parton was still talking about what she wanted to do next. She wasn't saying, I have had my time. She wasn't saying, she wasn't saying I have accomplished enough. She wasn't sitting around simply remembering who she used to be. She was planning a museum. She was planning a hotel, a Broadway musical, a new business, or she was planning new business ventures. She was planning new creative ideas. And just 4 days before her passing, she said, I still have so many things that I want to achieve. I want you to sit with that. 4 days. And then she was gone. And when I read that, I didn't immediately think about Jolene. I didn't think about the wigs. I didn't think about Dollywood. I thought to myself, isn't that life? Right? You can live 80 years, build an extraordinary life, accomplish things your younger self couldn't possibly have imagined, and still feel like, I need to do more. I am not finished yet. Today, I don't just want to talk about the passing of Dolly Parton. No, I want to talk about the life of a woman who never seemed to stop imagining what else was possible. Because Dolly Parton's story isn't a story about success. It's a story about possibilities. And if you've ever looked at your age, your circumstances, your mistakes, your responsibilities, or the years that have passed, and you wondered, is there still time for me? I really want you to stay with me. I'll be right back. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Femi, and this is Life Coaching Woman Stand in Your Power. Okay, so today we are talking about Dolly Parton. She passed August 25th, 2026 at the age of 80 after what her representatives described as a brief battle with cancer. This woman passed at Vanderbilt Ingram Cancer Center in Nashville. She was surrounded by loved ones. And understandably, much of the conversation right now is about her passing, right? Oh, what happened? What happened to Dolly Parton? How long had she been ill? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, a lot of people are asking, did people know how serious it was? But the more I looked at Dolly Parton's final moment, the more I found myself interested in something else. She's gone. May her soul rest in peace. This woman was building. Even while dealing with health problems, even after losing her husband of nearly 60 years, she was still working, even at 80. This woman was working even at 80. Dolly Parton had things written on the calendar. She had things she wanted to do. She still had ideas that she wanted to put into development. She still had things she wanted to see become real. And I think that's what it's worth thinking about. What do you think? Because society has a strange way of teaching women that eventually we are supposed to stop wanting more. Society has a way of teaching women that eventually we are supposed to stop wanting more. At 20, everyone asks, what are you going to become? At 30, you are supposed to have figured it all out. At 40, people start reminding you that you are getting older. At 50, you are encouraged to reinvent yourself, almost as though your first life has totally expired. At retirement, or at 60, retirement enters every conversation. By the time you are 70 or 80, society often talks about people almost entirely in the past tense. They begin to talk about people in the past tense. Oh, she used to be this. She was once that. Back when she was this. As if this person is already gone. But Dolly Parton was still speaking in future tense. Even at 80, she still had plans. She still had things she wanted to do. She was using terms like, I am going to. She was using terms like, I am working on. She was using terms like, I still want to do this. I still want to do that. And there is something that I find very incredibly powerful about that. So for me, today, rather than simply mourning Dolly Parton, I want us to look at what she actually built, what her life teaches us about ambition, ownership, aging, purpose, and refusing to decide that our best years have to be behind us, or your best years have to be behind you. I want us to look at what she has built for herself. May her soul rest in perfect peace. But let's go back to the beginning. Because Dolly Parton, the Dolly Parton we eventually know, if you're watching, please like, share, and subscribe. The Dolly Parton we eventually knew, rhinestones, blonde wigs, right? That was what we knew about her. Sold out performances, businesses, enormous cultural influence. Okay? Started life in circumstances that looked nothing like where she eventually, ended up. This woman, Dolly Rebecca Parton, was born in Tennessee, I hope I'm pronouncing it well, in 1946. She was one of 12 children, born into a very poor family. Her family had no money. Dolly never tried to rewrite that part of her story. She lived it. She talked openly about it, about the poverty. She wrote about it. If you are watching, please like, share, and subscribe. She didn't run away from it. She sang about it. She built parts of her identity around where she came from. She did all of that, right? But here is what I find very interesting. She allowed her upbringing to shape her without allowing it to define the limits of her future. And those are not the same things, because there are people who will look at where you came from and decide where you are allowed to go. But you alone have the permission to go where you want to go. Sometimes it's society that will define where you have to go based on where you're coming from. Sometimes it's the family. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is we ourselves. We begin saying things like, people like me don't do that. Or we say things like, nobody in my family has ever done that. Sometimes we put that limit on ourselves. We say things like, oh, I don't know the right people. I don't have enough money. We put excuses. Sometimes tell ourselves, oh, maybe I'm dreaming too big. But from what we see, little Dolly at the time was dreaming big, bigger than herself. She started performing when she was still a child. At 13, she had appeared at the Grand Ole Opry. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. After finishing high school, she headed to Nashville to pursue music seriously. She did not know how the story would end. She didn't have Dollywood at the time waiting for her. There wasn't some organized multi-million-dollar career that was sitting in Nashville with her name on it. None. There was just a woman who believed in her journey, who believed in herself. She believed there has to be more for me than what I can see right now. That was her. That was Dolly. She believed, and isn't that where most dreams begin? Where you believe that, oh, there's more out there. Even though you don't have evidence, you just have the belief that there is more out there for me. And then you now begin to take one step after the other, and now after the other. So this woman wasn't just talented, she was smart. One thing I think gets lost when people talk about Dolly Parton is just how intelligent she was about her career. Because Dolly made something very difficult look very easy. She was funny, she was warm, she was friendly, she joked about everything. She joked about her hair, her body, her clothes, her image. So people could easily have, underestimated the woman underneath all of that. But this woman understood business, and she stood on business. She understood songwriting. And most importantly, she understood what ownership was all about. She established her own publishing company earlier in her career. And one of the greatest examples of that business instinct came with I Will Always Love You. You remember that song that we all think, a lot of us say, I will always love you, popular with Whitney Houston. Elvis Presley wanted to record it. That song was originally Dolly Parton's song. Imagine being a songwriter and hearing that Elvis Presley wants your song. Most people will probably say, where do I sign? Bring the paper. But the proposed arrangement involved giving up part of the publishing. And guess what? She refused. And I'm sure that was not an easy decision for her. It wasn't easy at all. But Dolly Parton refused. And sometimes saying no to an opportunity feels like saying no to success sometimes, right? Sometimes you leave an organization and people look at you like, oh, you just said no to your future. Especially when the person on the other side has more money, more power, more fame. A lot of people look at you like, is she crazy? When the other person has more influence, I'm sure a lot of people were looking at her like, is she all right in the brain? But Dolly understood something. She understood that an opportunity that requires you to give away too much of yourself may not actually be your opportunity. And years later, behold, Whitney Houston recorded I Will Always Love You. And it became one of the most famous recordings in modern music history. And Dolly Parton still owned her song. You can imagine how much she will have made from that song. That decision alone tells me so much about Dolly Parton. She wasn't only thinking about today. She's a woman that was thinking about tomorrow. So in whatever sphere of your life, how are you thinking? Are you thinking about today alone, or are you thinking strategically? A lot of people tend to think, tactically, but are you thinking strategically? Dolly could have built an amazing career simply staying in country music. She had the voice, she had the songwriting, you know, she had the audience, but she kept on expanding. This woman kept on expanding. Country music wasn't enough. She went into pop music. That music wasn't enough. She went into movies. She started with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in 9 to 5. She started with she did a lot of movies. Then came other movies including Still Magnolias. Then she wrote books. Then she did television. Then came the stage productions. And it went on, and then businesses and businesses and businesses. She also moved into tourism. Part of the businesses she started, doing. She moved into hospitality. She went into products. She then entered philanthropy. And then Dolly kept asking, what else can I do? And I think that's one of the most relatable parts of our journey, in my opinion, because many of us become trapped by the best version of ourselves that works. You get one career and you think, well, I guess this is what I would do forever. And you are stuck there. You become a mother, and suddenly motherhood is expected to contain your entire identity. You become somebody's wife, and that takes everything. It just takes your whole life, right? So you become somebody's employee, and you just believe that, oh, I want to work here forever. You are not even aspiring to do other things. You become somebody's caregiver. You become somebody's helper. You become somebody's, whatever you become, somebody's girlfriend or whatever. And after enough years, you forget that you are still allowed to ask yourself, what do I want to become now? Dolly kept asking those questions differently. What do I really want to become now? And I don't think she saw reinvention as rejecting the woman that she has become. No. She simply kept making room for the woman she was becoming. So my question to you will be, are you making room for the woman you are becoming? Because that's a big difference. You don't have to hate your old life to want a new chapter. You don't have to be ungrateful for what you have to admit that you still want more. I keep saying that. It is called ambition. This woman turned a name into an empire. In my opinion, that is what she did. She turned a name into an empire. Then you have Dolly the entrepreneur, and this is where her story becomes even more impressive to me. Because she didn't simply make money from being famous. This woman built things. She built a lot of things. Dollywood became one of the clearest inventions, or let me say clearest examples. Dollywood. Think about that. I want you to pause and think about that. A woman grew up in East Tennessee. She grew up poor, then eventually became associated with one of the region's most significant tourism destinations. That means she left home to pursue her dream. She became successful and then brought opportunity back home. Then Dollywood created jobs. That created tourism. Created economic activity in her hometown. In an entire ecosystem around the region that Dolly Parton came from. Now, in my opinion, that's bigger than the celebrity. That is a woman that created an infrastructure, and over the years, her business interest expanded like never before. She went into entertainment, hospitality, food, fragrance, merchandise, resorts, And even near the end of her life, this woman wasn't finished yet. She was not done. In June 2026, she launched Cup of Ambition Coffee, an idea connected to 9 to 5 that she said had been in her mind for years. She eventually launched it at 80, and then somebody is looking at me and saying, "Oh, I am old, I can't do anything." Really? Our official site was still announcing new projects through the summer of 2026. And again, remember, she's 80 years old, still launching. 80 years old, still launching. But if you ask me, what achievement says the most about Dolly Parton as a human being? It may not be one of the songs. It may be the books. Dolly's father struggled with reading and writing, okay? And Dolly never forgot that. She never forgot that. So in 1995, she started Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. The idea was simple. Children would receive free books delivered directly to them. What started in her home county grew and grew and grew and outgrew her. By the end of 2025, Dolly's Imagination Library had gifted more than 304 million books since its creation. Now, today, the program operates across 5 countries and sends millions of books to children every month. 300 million books. I want you to actually just imagine that. Think about it. Not 300 million streams, 300 million books, not 300 million likes, not followers, but books. Books that are going into homes, going into children's hands. Children are learning words, learning to read. Parents sitting beside their children reading. Children discovering worlds they didn't know existed through reading. And it came from Dolly Parton remembering something difficult about our own family. Now, that's legacy. Taking something painful from your story and turning it into something useful for someone else's story. In my opinion, that's legacy. That's legacy. She didn't just want to be successful, she wanted to be useful. I don't think her wanting more simply meant her wanting more money, wanting more attention, more awards. By 80, what exactly did Dolly Parton have left to prove? She already had 11 Grammys. She had been inducted into the County Music Hall of Fame. She was also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She had enormous commercial success. She had films. Name it, she had it. Businesses. She had global recognition. She had already become one of the most successful or most recognizable entertainers of her generation. So why should she keep working? Why should she still keep dreaming? She continue dreaming because there's a difference between wanting more because you don't feel enough and wanting more because you still have something inside of you to give. I think Dolly increasingly lived in that second space where she still had she wanted to leave this world empty. She wanted to, so that when her creator comes to get her, he will say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." She funded disaster relief. She funded scholarships, medical causes. She did all of that. And she kept on still asking, what else can I contribute? Okay? Success doesn't protect anyone from being human. In March 2025, she lost her husband. They had both been married for almost 60 years, almost 6 decades with one person. And then suddenly, you are living in a world where that person isn't there anymore. She later admitted that the period surrounding his illness and passing had taken a toll on her body. So she had focused so much on caring for him that some of her own health issues didn't receive the attention that they should have at the time. And I think so many women will be able to relate to that, and they will understand that, because women can become incredibly good at disappearing into responsibilities. Oh, did the children eat? Did I show up for work? Did he take his medication? Oh, did my mom get the appointment? All of those things. We are always there doing everything for everybody. And there's a lesson in Dolly Parton's final chapter that we shouldn't ignore. In as much as you are there for everybody, you need to check up on yourself. But the most important lesson here is keep dreaming, yes. Keep creating, absolutely. But don't disappear while you're building that life. You deserve to actually be present inside the life that you are working so hard to create. Oh. Now we come to what I believe is the heart of the entire story. Because despite the grief, despite the health problems, despite being 80, she was still making plans. Like, I would call it her life of many colors. I think she had that museum. A Life of Many Colors museum was developed in Nashville. And then the Songteller Hotel was also coming. Her Broadway production, Dolly A true original musical, was moving towards Broadway. She had a cup of ambition coffee. Other product collaborations were being developed. And just days before her passing, she was discussing these things. Like someone who fully expected to be here. To be here for another chapter. That's the part that really moves me. Because she wasn't sitting at 80 thinking, well, the interesting part of my life happened at 30. No, she still had ideas. Think about how radical that is in a culture that is obsessed with youth. We hear phrases like, oh, she's aging out. Her time has passed. She has expired. She should retire. She's too old for that. And most of these conversations are especially, give me one moment. Most of those conversations are especially targeted at women. Okay? Maybe your life changed. Maybe you had children. Maybe money became tight. Maybe you had to take care of someone. Maybe you moved. Maybe your confidence took a hit. Maybe you started again. This doesn't mean that your destination disappeared. No. You just need to keep moving. Let's take a learning from Dolly. This woman had absolutely nothing to prove. This is what makes her continued ambition different. She didn't need another project to become important. No, she was already important. She didn't need another business to become wealthy. She was already wealthy. She didn't need another award to prove that she could sing. The world already knew that. She already proved that. She didn't need the world to learn her name. Okay? They already heard her name. What are we talking about? The world already knew her name. And yet, she kept creating. She kept moving forward. If you are watching, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know where you are watching me from. She kept creating. She kept moving forward. And that tells me something. Maybe the best kind of ambition happens when you stop creating to prove that you are worthy and start creating because being alive makes you curious about what else is possible. Just maybe. There comes a time where the question changes from, can I prove myself, to something else. From can I prove myself, the question changes to what can I contribute? That's a question for each and every one of us to answer. What can I contribute? I want to speak to someone right now. I want to speak directly to someone. Why do you do the things that you do? Maybe you are watching this at 46 or 45 or 55. Maybe you are 35 years old and already telling yourself that it's too late. You see people younger than you starting businesses. You see people changing careers, finding love, going back to school, traveling, making money, building platforms, and quietly you think to yourself, I should have done that years ago. Okay, maybe you should have. Maybe you should have done that years ago. But you didn't. So what? What are you going to do with today that you have in your hands? You cannot go back to begin 25 years old again, but you can stop making 45-year-old you pay forever because 25-year-old you didn't know what she knows now. You can still start again. And starting later doesn't make the dream less real. I repeat, you can still start again. Dolly continued launching new things deep into her 70s, into her 80s. If Dolly can do it, you can do it as well. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. I just wanted to talk to us about that today. May Dolly's soul rest in perfect peace. Let me know what your thoughts are about this in the comment section. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye.